Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 27 of the Serial Chillers podcast. I am your host, Jesse, and thank you all so much for listening. Today, I have two in-studio guests, brand new guests for this one. We bring in Kyle and Cary. Kyle brings us a little spooky story that he experienced in his own life, so kind of cool to get a first-hand story. As always, producer Greg across the internet, and I bring you the story of the Kansas City butcher, Robert Berdella. This is a listener recommendation. Thank you, Michelle H. Appreciate it very much. Everybody, please sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 27 of the Serial Chillers podcast. Oh, fuck it. Let's get started. Welcome to episode 27 of 1 million of the Serial Chillers podcast. I like to limit myself. That's why we've got it capped at 1 million here today, guys.
Just 1 million.
Yep. So
9,000 mudkits.
As always, I am your host, Jesse. Across the internet is producer Greg. Joining us as always, Greg. How goes it?
It goes well. Doing stuff.
Doing
producer things.
Greg is doing producer things, and for that we are very proud. Thank you. Thank
Even
you.
a blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while.
Yes, indeed he does. And sitting to my left is longtime friend and drummer in the first band that I was ever in, my good, dear old friend Kyle. How's your percussion skill these days?
Probably terrible. I haven't played in so long I don't know, but I'm going to assume it's really bad.
Well, welcome, Kyle. Thank you for being here. Sitting across from me, I actually met through Kyle.
What's up?
My favorite diabetic, Cary.
That's me. Always got the kids to do the shit. The diabetic kid did it. Do it.
that was how we got anybody to do anything. It was that the diabetic did it. Well, you're not gonna jump off the rope swings? Fucking diabetic did it.
Yeah.
He had an insulin pump on too, bro. Come on.
Should have seen that shit slap the water.
So welcome, Kyle. Welcome, Cary, and as always, welcome, producer Greg.
Thank you.
What is the show like, you guys ask? Each week I sit down with old friends, new friends, good friends, and bad friends to tell them a story of an infamous serial killer. Throughout the show, you guys will chime in on my story, and if you have them, share stories of your own that are true crime, dark, creepy, unsolved, or otherwise mysterious. Lastly, if you have questions about questions, make sure to ask questions because I cannot answer questions about questions if you never ask questions.
Awesome.
Any questions?
Any question?
Sure.
Okay, just...
Yeah, any questions. If there are none, welcome to and let's play the Serial Chillers podcast. Yeah. So, today's killer, definitely one of the most obscure that I've done as far as information available about him. His name, Robert Berdella. Anyone?
No.
Yes,
not at all.
That's perfect. I have two people who like serial killers who have not heard of Robert Berdella sitting with me at this table. I hadn't until I was given this wonderful suggestion by listener Michelle. So thank you, Michelle, for this recommendation. And also, I hate you for making me dig deep into this guy. So, Robert Berdella, you guys, if you haven't listened to the show, you may not know this, but question number one is always, with no context, in what year is Robert Berdella born? Use your cards to write down your answers. The closest to the answer gets 250 points.
Ooh.
A little bit of a short, there are only 8 questions today. There's usually about 12. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry. I might type. My keyboard wasn't up. I'll back you up. Okay.
I'm going to go with that.
All right. Show me your answer, Cary.
All right, let's see.
Cary's got 1976. Kyle's got 1945. Kyle's going to score 250 points because on January 31st, 1949, only 4 years off, Robert Berdella was born in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. So Kyle strikes first, 250 on the board, taking a lead in. 7 questions remaining. So Robert Berdella is the first of 2 sons born to Robert Berdella Sr., a die setter for the Ford Motor Company, and Alice Berdella, who was a homemaker. Berdella's father was a Catholic man of Italian descent and raised his family in a deeply religious household. The family regularly attended mass, and both sons regularly attended religious education courses. As a child, Berdella was intelligent, but was not social. They mention this so many times throughout his life, is that he's an incredibly intelligent, but at no point does he ever like...
That's how most of them are.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's very, very introverted.
But then you have the polar opposites, like Ted Bundy, who was very, very social and a charmer.
And
he even got that dude. He got that guy back inside his house with those two cops. He's like, "Oh no, we're just getting."
That's Dahmer.
Oh, was that Dahmer?
Yep, that was
my bad.
Dahmer.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Still though.
I'm here to
what
get
a
your
charmer.
serial killer facts straight. So, he's not very social, very intelligent. He's rarely known to play outside. He's pretty much inside all the time. He doesn't even go out by himself into the yard. He likes to be alone inside. He was also severely nearsighted, resulted in his being required to wear thick glasses from the age of 5, and he was afflicted with a slight speech impediment. Now,
He's got a lot
That's
going
just
for
from
him.
beating off on his
but
road
I've
too
heard
much.
interviews with him, and I don't really. Maybe as a kid, he had an impediment, but I couldn't find what it was. Maybe a lisp, but he was definitely bullied for it. He's also at a very young age diagnosed with high blood pressure. Ooh. So as a child, to get a diagnosis of high blood pressure, he was not excited, nor was his father. He's prescribed a myriad of prescription pills in order to help with his high blood pressure. In part of his diagnosis, because of this, he's obviously very unathletic as a kid, because he has high blood pressure as a child. He can't go out and do sports and run around and do crazy shit like normal kids are out doing.
About to drop an O-ring when he sprints.
Yeah. So his dad was very, very into the idea of having athletic sons. So this sort of took a turn for the worse for Robert, because, he wanted an athletic son, and he has a younger brother, Daniel, who is a very accomplished athlete. And his father sees Robert's non-interest in sports as just that, a non-interest. He doesn't even see the medical diagnosis of, when he's got high blood pressure, he can't go out and see sports. He just sees like, what sissy son do I have that doesn't even like sports?
Very much a disappointment in his father.
Right. And I've got this younger son who fucking kicks ass. He hit a home run last night. What are you doing? Yeah. Robert Jr. I should have saved that name for him.
That's how the 50s were back then. You were either like football all-star, like cheerleader, and if you weren't, you were a bitch.
Yeah, Cary was there, you guys. Listen up.
Mm-hmm. Seriously.
For sure.
So he's very unfairly compared to his younger brother, because his younger brother is the great athlete. It says occasionally Berdella's father would also become physically and emotionally abusive against both children, and it is known to have beaten them with a leather strap. So his dad, a belt. That sounds like a belt to me. But we all took the belt as far as growing up. Most of my friends, I think, will agree that we grew up in probably one of the last generations that were going to get spanked, with pretty much parents not getting shit for it.
Right.
Accurate.
Yeah, like
so.
I took the strap, I took the spoon, maybe the hanger a couple times. I was definitely a shithead and definitely deserved it. I can't do that to my kids though.
I remember one time Mom squared up with me in the hallway. Straight knuckled up. I was like, oh damn, she's for real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember trying to step up to my dad, and he back when I was like 12 or something, and he just bear hugged me and like, popped every bone in my back, and I fell on the ground. I just crawled to my room because I barely moved.
Yeah, exactly. He's like,
all right,
yeah,
you win.
I'm still your dad, bitch. Why don't you wait 10 years, give this another try.
Exactly.
So Berdella overall did okay in school. Teacher said that he was quite hard to deal with, and a lot of this had to do with the fact that he was very aloof and didn't care much. He was just there to be there. He also seemed to have a magnetic field for being bullied. When Berdella reached puberty, he discovered that he was homosexual. Initially, he kept his fact a closely guarded secret and would not become open about his sexuality for several years. Nonetheless, in his early teens, he did form one brief relationship with a girl, which was very short-lived. In 1961, at the age of 12, he was baptized as Catholic. In December of 1965, on Christmas Day, Berdella's family drove to Canton to visit relatives. That evening, Berdella's father suffered a severe heart attack, from which he died 2 days later at the age of 39.
I bet he was happy as shit.
No, I think that even though his dad beat him a lot, he was still he was still his dad. I think that he didn't despise him.
Okay.
I think just like you said, it was the 50s. I think they were, they're taking the strap, and they were, he just unfortunately
better people.
Right. So his father dies. He was shocked to hear of his father's death and initially sought a form of solace in his religion. So he looked deep into Catholicism, and he didn't find what he was looking for when he did that. He would later read extensively about many other faiths and religions and ideas, but never embraced any of them, gradually developing a cynical attitude toward any form of religion. In 1965, he saw the film adaptation of the John Fowles book, The Collector. The plot of this movie revolves around a lonely male who stalks, then abducts young women he finds attractive and holds her captive in his windowless stone basement, viewing her as little more than an attractive specimen. After several weeks, the female captive dies of a contracted illness despite her captor's efforts to keep her alive. Berdella later stated this movie had formed a lasting impression on him. So this is
foreshadowing.
For me, it was fucking Jurassic Park. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This guy's like, I like how he keeps her in the room and doesn't let her go.
I need a house with a basement, some stones.
Right. We're talking about Rob, a 12-year-old Rob Berdella here, who's just like, this is my shit right here.
That's what he started getting on his grind. He's like, I need a house with a basement.
Yeah, I guess so. So, shortly after the death of his father, his mother remarried. I think it was something like 8 months later. It was not long down the road.
Damn.
This act was met with resentment by Robert, who viewed the move as a form of betrayal against his father. As a result, Berdella became increasingly withdrawn and further immersed in himself in the solitary activities he participated in since childhood. Question number 2. I'm going to give you 4 options as to the hobbies he did. One of them are not one of Robert Berdella's childhood hobbies. So which one of these is not Robert Berdella's childhood hobby?
Okay.
Painting, collecting coins and stamps, model building, or writing to foreign pen pals. A, painting. B, collecting coins and stamps. C, model building. Or D, writing to foreign pen pals. This one's for 250 points. Kyle's got his answer.
I got mine.
Cary's got his. Let's see it.
It's the bottom.
All right. Cary says C, model building. Kyle says D, writing to foreign pen pals. Cary's got a horse in this race. 250 to 250. He was not a model builder.
Right.
He loved to paint. He collected coins and stamps. And his most favorite of all, writing to foreign
Of course, the one that I picked, right? Because why would it not be? Why would
He's
a
like,
reclusive person
he's got foreign pen pals, bro.
Okay.
How do you
He's like, I
spread the
never have to
word,
see you. I just write to you.
So later Berdella would mention
That
that
makes sense.
while he was writing pen pals in other countries as a child, he was able to learn through them about different cultures. This led to his love for oddities and other cultural curiosities. He would eventually open a store dedicated to such items. So this is pre-internet, and really the only other way you're going to learn about only way that you're going to learn about other cultures is in encyclopedia, or you're going to experience them somehow.
Right.
And then we're talking about a kid in Ohio in we're in 1964 here. He's got the right idea. He's like writing to kids in other countries and like, hey, what's this like? And it said that they would exchange like, they would send pictures of like their folklore creatures, this man is said to eat children if we do this, and so he was kind of getting like some of the deep cultural stuff from these other children, and they were teaching him about all of these kind of vast things, and he's just soaking it in. It wasn't like he was just curious because he needed something to write about. He wanted to know, and he was learning about other cultures, and in a pretty efficient, effective way for the time. I thought it was of all the things I read about Robert Berdella this week and beyond, this was definitely one of the cooler facts, is that he kind of fucking figured out how to go learn all his shit without
being there.
Yeah, that's kind of ingenuitive.
You can't just Google.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So Robert takes a job at an Ohio restaurant, and he was like a busboy. It was like a diner as far as I can tell. And unfortunately, he faces probably one of the largest negative events in his life, as he was raped by a coworker at the Ohio restaurant that he worked at, a male coworker.
He's like, "Excuse me, can I get some super nachos?" And he's like, "How about that sweet butt?"
That's may not be exactly how it happened, but it is definitely the situation.
That's the gist.
Yeah. So this affected him heavily. Like I said, he was very into the religions. Even though he was becoming more cynical towards them, he still, they still carried some weight and held a lot of regard with him. And he was still going to church with his mother, even though he didn't necessarily believe. So here, at this point, he's raped by this man. He completely stops attending church services with his mother. Oh, shit. He tells her, I'm not going to go anymore. And she asks why. And he doesn't say, yeah, Lou raped me or whatever. Yeah. But he
doesn't say.
He says, listen.
Somebody gave me a tip, but it wasn't the tip I thought it was going to be.
Someone stole my behymen.
Yeah. Oh my God. So he decides that church is Cary, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry.
He'll be here all night.
Sorry, he's diabetic.
It's the diabetes.
It completely ruins faith for him. This takes God out of the world for him. So he's in 65. He's 16 years old. So he's
going through the phases.
Well, okay, he's going through the phases, but he's also fighting this, knowing that he's homosexual. In 1965, you get lynched for that shit. Right? Yeah, I'm sure.
Especially a gay Catholic.
A gay Catholic person in the Midwest in the late 1960s.
Done.
Yeah, I'm sure that if they had known, they would have drug him behind a pickup truck.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, right. So he's dealing with a lot of shit, and now on top of all of it, he's been raped by a male coworker.
So when he has to see day in and day out.
So his view on the world and what he believed and held so true until very recently looks like it's all kind of shattering around him. Not to, empathize too much with a serial killer, but it does.
Yeah, but I mean, most of the stories of the creation of serial killers, or what led up to their creation, is traumatic. It's sad.
Right.
Mostly.
It's very correct. There are definitely some sick fucks that don't need the battle.
Yeah, so you can definitely feel bad for some of them up to that point.
Right. I always go back to Eileen Wuornos. She was like the most prolific woman serial killer. Look into her sometime. Her history. There's an episode, Serial Killers, about it. Check it out. She's
the blonde one with the jacked up teeth.
She is the one who Charlize Theron played in Monster. Okay. Yeah. So, one of the most traumatic upbringings of any serial killer. It's the one that I truly, truly feel very, very awful for, even through what she did. She was very fucked. Anyways, sorry. Continuing on with Robert Berdella. In August of 1967, at 18 years old, he's graduated high school now, and he enrolls in the Kansas City Art Institute. He's looking to utilize some of the artistic abilities he's developed over the years of reclusiveness. So while he is in Kansas City Art Institute, he starts to kind of come into his own a little bit. He's starting to gain a little more confidence, and he starts to abuse and sell drugs and alcohol because it's not readily available to students. So he's kind of just the contraband expert.
That's when he starts trapping.
So good for you, Robert Berdella. The original trap, 1967. So while in school, he is... from what I understand, it was like marijuana and some pills. But again, we're talking late 60s. I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
It's not
but
gonna be some crazy stuff like we got in 2017.
Right. He's totally fucking missing out. So the following year,
hit the salt real quick.
In January of 1968 at 19, he's arrested and pleads guilty for selling amphetamines to an undercover agent. So it's certainly pills.
Yeah.
I think we're a little predating methamphetamine, but we're maybe diet pills that they're finding ways to, however they're doing it. Yes, he gets in trouble for this, selling amphetamines to an undercover agent. He receives a 5-year suspended sentence. The next month, he's arrested for possession of LSD and marijuana. After spending 5 days in jail, the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence.
I mean, how do you?
How is that lack of evidence?
You either got it or you don't.
Yeah, that's
You know?
I wondered the same thing, but so many different sources all said like that's why he got off. You know what I'm thinking? 1968, these cops are like, dude, look, we
Officer
can get
Thompson, where did it go?
we can
I
get
have
this
no
one
idea.
kid for possession of LSD in this pot. Or we could have some LSD and some pot.
And give him a slap on the wrist.
Yeah, you know what? Throw him in the cell for tonight.
that
Let's
was
really
that was
scare
also
him.
a different time. That you got caught, smoking pot or drinking, then they just take you home to your parents. and
Like,
tell you-
listen, we're going to punch you in the mouth. What do you think of that? That's your punishment today, okay?
Exactly.
All right, stand there. Close your eyes, actually. So later in 1968, he begins work as a short order cook. So we'll see now throughout his life, that's where a lot of his creative and artistic abilities are going to go, as they're going to move to the kitchen. So this kind of becomes his outlet as he starts cooking. In September of 1969, he buys a house, and this is where he will live until the day of his arrest. It is 4315 Charlotte Street, Kansas City, Missouri. It is Kyle taking notes. 4315 Charlotte Street, Kansas City, Missouri. It is going to become quite an infamous house by the time we are finished here. In December of 1969, just a few months after buying the house and dealing the drugs, he's straight balling out. He finally officially drops out of the Kansas City Art Institute. So during the 70s, not a lot goes on. I usually like to have like a nice little chronological thing here, running it all the way down. From 20 to 30, he's actually pretty boring.
Pretty stable.
Yeah.
Or does
pretty
he,
boring for a serial killer.
Right. So I kind of have a quick little breakdown. So in the 70s, from 20 to 30, he became more accomplished as a chef and worked for very well-known restaurants and country clubs in the area. He joined a local chefs association where he helped set up training classes for aspiring chefs. He also helped organize local crime prevention and neighborhood watch associations. He also began renting a space at the local flea market where he sold oddities, antiques, and artifacts. And in his late 20s, he finally becomes open about his homosexuality.
Well, right on. At least he came out the closet.
Yeah. So in 81, he's 32 years old. He's starting to get really into collecting these oddities and stuff for his flea market. He likes to collect, think of that show Oddities.
Right.
You know, like little skeletons and medical
DC's
devices and
DC's
Drunken
antiques.
heads and
Yeah, well, whatever it is, just some weird shit that people will buy for money. So late in 81, he starts to get so good at his oddities business that he quits being a cook full time and opens a shop.
Wow.
Question number 3. This is also multiple choice. The collection has grown large enough now to become a store. What does Robert name his store? Does he name it Robert's Rare Find, Bob's Bizarre Bazaar, The Best Flea Market, or A Collection of Oddities by Robert? A. Robert's Rare Find, B. Bob's Bizarre Bazaar, C. Best Flea Market, or D. A Collection of Oddities by Robert? Ooh,
That's
they're
a
all
good
such
one.
good names,
Right?
man. I'm such a
I feel
good
like I just
namer.
need to stick with D at this point.
Just rolling
Right?
with that.
Right? Roll with the D. I was going to go with like Bob's Oddballs and shit.
You got what do you get?
But
I'm just gonna stick with D.
All
I'm
right.
gonna write that down so it's
Okay.
official.
I got C.
I'm going with D.
'cause,
Okay.
I mean, he ran a flea market, right?
Yep. Cary says C. Best Flea Market. Kyle says D. A Collection of Oddities by Robert. You guys should have gone with the alliteration. He names his store Bob's Bizarre Bazaar. Yes.
Okay.
So no one will score on that one. We're going to continue the score at 250 to 250 through 3 questions.
It kind of sucks in a way
shit.
to lose, but I mean, do you really want to be able to think like a serial killer
I don't know.
and be on point with it?
It's less thinking like a serial killer and just knowing random stupid fucking facts about them.
How random.
Because so far I've asked you when he was born, what his hobbies were as a child, and what his store was called.
I would be honest, and I probably would have said it around the same time Cary did, but when I saw the page come up, I saw the picture was black and white. So I knew it was old. So I was like,
He
yeah,
had the
40's
in.
good. 45, somewhere right there.
So Kyle's
I
already
kinda-
cheating,
so
but
I
at least
kinda
he's being
cheated.
transparent about that.
And hey, how fucking cool would it be to know if one of your friends was a serial killer by playing a video game or a game like this?
Yeah, I don't-
you know what I mean?
it's
I don't know. It'd be cool to know my friend was a serial killer.
it's definitely a good place to start
Tendencies.
trying to
There's
find it out.
tendencies.
Yeah, tendencies.
Bless his heart.
So he's got his store, and in late of 82 at 33 years old, he becomes very seriously emotionally involved with an unstable Vietnam veteran. Apparently, there's constant fighting, they're fist fighting, they're screaming at all hours of the night. Fortunately for everybody, the relationship does not last too long. At this point, Robert begins picking up young male prostitutes. He would become a friend to many of them, often allowing them to live with him in exchange for helping with housework. He tried to get many of them to quit prostituting and get their lives in order. So this is like a life's mission. He's not even picking them up to fuck them. He's just picking them up and being like, dude,
You need
let's
help, bro.
get your life together. You're too beautiful for this.
And
he's
while you're getting your life together,
Just put my D in your mouth.
maybe we fuck like a little bit, but like also you got to sweep the kitchen
maybe
floor.
just the tip,
Yeah.
and
And then he has a weird flashback, and all of a sudden we're in trouble.
right, and Lieutenant Dan's
Down in the
there.
basement. Down in the basement.
So, he's, who knows? Well, we do know what his motives are, but he's trying to get these guys in a better spot. In 1984, at the age of 35, he begins hanging out with 19-year-old Cary Howell, one of the young prostitutes. He starts hanging out with him a lot.
A bit.
On July 4th, 1985, Cary would become his very first known victim.
Damn.
So we're going to take a quick break right here. We're going to come back with a little story Kyle brought us, and come back or I'll kill you. All right, welcome back, everybody, to episode 27 of the Serial Chillers podcast. Still with us across the internet, as always, producer Greg. We have Cary and Kyle here in the studio.
Hola.
Hey, hey.
Do you guys like how I call it a studio? It makes me sound more official, I think.
It's a nice little
It's
room.
a
I like
studio.
that.
Yeah,
I'll
cool.
go with that. You
All
got,
right.
you
like
got
that.
some foam squares over there.
Yeah, they're laying on the floor.
They're
but
not on the wall, but they're here.
They're
You know,
there.
We're good.
They're there. The effort
they're here with me in the studio in progress. And no. So we're going to get back to the story of Robert Berdella. But first, we're going to get a little story from Kyle. He brought us something interesting.
yes.
A lot of people bring us true crime stories. We've had a couple ghosts. We've had, I think, one alien story.
Okay.
We heard about the Mothman. This is, I think, one of the only stories someone's bringing that's like a personal experience. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And
Take it away.
So, disclaimer, I'm not really a religious person, don't believe in ghosts and all that stuff. I believe there's a logical explanation for everything.
A science unknown.
I always believe in something, that there's an explanation.
The truth is out there.
Yeah. So, this taking it back, I think I was like 13 or 14, and my grandparents used to live in a mobile home park, and there was a guy across the street, an older guy, and he was a super cool guy, really nice, always out and about, but he had cancer at this point, and it was pretty advanced. And my grandfather had a paper route, and I know you remember that, Cary.
The hell yeah.
So he came back one night from the paper route, and it was like 4-ish in the morning, right around there. And the neighbor came over and knocked on the door. And I remember specifically because my grandpa didn't wake up, and my grandma had a really bad back and her hips were bothering her, so she slept in the chair. So I heard the person walk up the porch because my room was right up to the porch. And so I started to get up, and then when they knocked on the door, I went up there and opened the door, and it was him, and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you guys know that the dome light's on in the car. So if you want to go out there and, obviously probably because the door wasn't closed all the way, so the battery wasn't dead. So, okay, cool, not a problem." So I grab the keys and I go out there, open the door, close it, light goes off, everything's good. I go back inside and tell my grandma I got it, cool, and I go back to my room, go to sleep. So the next morning, fast forward, like 5 or 6 hours, wake up and there's an ambulance in the not in the driveway, but like in the street, in a little cul-de-sac area of the park. And we went out there to see what was going on, and his daughter was there. And we asked her, hey, you know, is everything okay? And she said no, that she wasn't able to get a hold of him for the last 2 days and that he had actually passed away. And they're saying that he had been dead for about a day and a half, somewhere around there, that she couldn't get a hold of him. So
you had seen him like a few hours before.
100% for sure saw him at like around 4-ish in the morning. And I know it wasn't a dream because I got up and, you know, I could have dreamed that, but my grandma remembers waking up when the guy knocked on the door, and I went out, closed the door, came back in, said goodnight to her, and went to sleep. So, So I think, you know, my thing is like maybe they were just wrong on the time of death ish. And obviously I didn't tell her like, well, that's weird because I saw him.
Yeah.
You know, I was pretty freaked out about it. So I was like, maybe they were wrong kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know if you'd be off by
30 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
There's probably people that are listening that know a lot more about that than I do. So it might be something that they could have got wrong, but it was definitely creepy.
It's still an interesting story regardless.
They missed while sticking the liver for time of death.
Well, also, you know, at the very least, you're probably the last person to have ever talked to that guy.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling.
Yeah.
You know? But like I said, dude, it was totally creepy for a couple days. And
I bet you he saved you a spot in line. He's like, hey, come here, man. You're my friend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe.
Wow.
I mean, he was a cool guy, but that was, I mean, and like I said, she said she couldn't get a hold of him for 2 days.
Right.
So
How long do you suppose that line is? I mean, he'd still be in line by the time he gets up there.
Yeah. Or either that or, you know, something we don't know.
Here's the question. Would you take that cut in line to get your judgment sooner?
No, I will say with 100% confidence that if there is a line or a heaven, I'm not going to be there.
You won't. I'm actually not going to wait in the line. I know what they're going to say up there. Can I just like
take the express lane, jump down?
Well, that's what I'm saying. What if the line is hell? Like you're just forever stuck in a line. You can't get out because somebody's going to take your spot. You got to go to the back. You got to piss.
At the DMV
water stations, but there's no place to piss. And
just stuck at DMV, and you're like number 147, and like you look up at the screen, and they're on like 2.
Yeah,
exactly. One teller working. You're like, motherfucker.
Damn. Well, dude.
It's just
all right.
That'd be
you
terrible.
shook me a little. That was a good story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I don't tell it a lot, but I mean, it was definitely a creepy situation.
Yeah. Well,
at least.
Thank you for bringing it. I appreciate you sharing that. You know, we don't always get stories. I always appreciate when we get them, long or short. And I think a lot of times people think they have to bring some A game, like really well-known heavy hitter story. And I always appreciate those too. But like, you know, some of the best stories are ones that, you know, people experience because like nobody knows that story. You know, that you can't Google that and go get that.
You can't
know?
Google a guy that died across the street from Kyle when he was 14 or 13,
or you know, the
it is.
ones where someone stumbles randomly across a news website from, you know, whatever, Arkansas, and it's just some random true crime thing that didn't really blow up, but it's like, whoa, did you read how crazy this shit is?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that really get to me because you're like, why didn't this get attention? Why don't people know about this? You know, obviously I don't know how much of a platform you have to get that story attention, but like, that it's a good story. Thank you for putting it out there. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you, Kyle. So the murders are about to begin, but before we jump there, question number 4.
D.
By the time it is said and done, how many will Robert Berdella have murdered?
Ooh. Okay. Can we have the time frame?
No.
Well, thank you.
So
no, you may not.
This one you guys are just going to have to guess at. The closest to the answer will receive 250 points.
Just kind of pulled my pants down and stuck me out in the cornfield. Thank you.
So we're at 250 a pop here. Cary.
You said I can ask questions. How many did Bundy kill?
Bundy. Oh my gosh. Off the top of my
Dahmer,
head.
like rough count.
Dahmer had 17.
Dahmer was 17. Okay.
Ted Bundy was a 1970 serial murderer, rapist, necrophiliac. Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair in 1989. Bundy admitted to 36 killings of young women, but experts believe he could have actually killed more than 100 people.
Ooh, gangstar.
High score.
Wonderful.
Yeah, what does that mean? Did I break?
I was shooting real low with those standards of 14. Damn.
All right.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you, Kyle, for poking holes in my knowledge. So, how many kills was Robert Berdella responsible for? What do you got there?
15.
15 from Kyle.
like
Cary,
that's
what have
way
you
wrong.
got written down?
I've got 14.
Sweet, Price is Right.
Price is Right. So I'll tell you guys, there is the only way it would be Price is Right is if you guys were an equal distance away from an answer. So let's say the answer were 10 and you guessed 11 and he guessed 12, then it would become Price is Right. Other than that, it's just closest to, which Cary gets for guessing 14, because by the time it's said and done, Robert Berdella will have murdered 6 people.
That's it?
It only takes 3 to be a serial killer.
You say that's it, but that's still 6
he
lives.
still
that
killed.
He ended.
Well, okay.
He
on
did.
The, on the big
That's
end-
a fact.
In the big end of things, look at Fresno, dude. It's 1 million people. There's 7 billion people on the face of the planet. If you killed 6, it's 6.
Yeah, but that's 6 more than anyone here has killed.
That's true.
Oh, speak for yourself, bro.
that I'm aware of. Anyway.
Ooh. Hey.
So, like I said,
All right. I'm
You don't know
Robert
behind here.
Robert Berdella on Independence Day 1985, July 4th, according to him, he plied Jeffrey Howell with alcohol, Valium, and acepromazine, both in his car and at his house, until the youth became unconscious. So I looked it up for us because I didn't want to know. Acepromazine is a dog tranquilizer.
Oh, really?
All right.
Yeah, so apparently it's very easy to get your hands on animal tranquilizers.
Yeah, you can order any of that stuff from Canada currently right now, by the way.
There you go. Wonderful.
Fun fact.
Run up and kick your dog in the stomach. He's in pain.
So he injected him with the dog tranquilizers to sort of render him docile, and then he injected him with even heavier tranquilizers before binding him to a bed.
Wow.
So full sprawl, I believe it was, to the posts.
Okay.
Face down or face up?
Face up
Oh.
to start. Howell was restrained to Berdella's bed for a period of approximately 28 hours. Throughout this period of captivity, Berdella repeatedly drugged, tortured, raped, and violated the youth with many foreign objects.
Oh.
Repeatedly ignoring Howell's intermittent questioning as to why he was being treated in this manner. This guy is just, he doesn't even understand like what's happening. And Robert Berdella, that got him going more. You know, like he was in control and they had no control. And that just got him more. He loved to terrorize them. And according to Robert Berdella, he either, quote, asphyxiated on his own vomit, or the combination of the gag and the medicines were too strong for him to be able to catch breath.
The
Berdella,
combination of the gag.
yeah, so he ball gag,
Okay.
hardcore.
All right.
Berdella would later state that he did briefly attempt to perform CPR on Howell. After he realized that he had died, he drug his body to the basement. He then suspended Howell's body above a large cooking pot and made several incisions to the youth's inner elbows and jugular vein before leaving the body suspended in this position overnight to allow the blood to drain from his corpse.
Because he's a chef.
So he understood how to do it.
He's all time to get cut, pig.
He exsanguinated this kid over a
cooking
pot.
Mm.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's got to be a big pot.
I mean, he's a chef. I mean, you got to have like a big pot to cook like some lobsters, you know? You need something like a roaring
You need a
boil.
75-gallon pot.
You know, you never know. It might be a big lobster. So okay, yeah. So the following day, after the blood has drained from the corpse, he dismembers Howell's body using a chainsaw and boning knives.
Nice.
Before wrapping the sections in newspaper and then multiple trash bags before stuffing those into trash bags and placing them inside larger trash bags, which Berdella then placed outside for a garbage truck to collect and take to the landfill, unknowingly.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is in the 70s? Or still 60s?
80s.
Oh, damn.
85.
Absolutely brilliant.
Late bloomer for a serial killer, by the way, as well,
Right.
in his 40s.
That's just, I mean, it's just weird. It's so simple. Like you think about just putting a body in a trash can.
Right.
And it just goes in the trash truck and then it just goes and gets dumped.
And goes away forever.
Everybody's trash stinks.
Yeah, and he cut it down
He
small
triple
and
bagged it. He
yeah,
triple bagged it.
he triple bagged.
Yeah, put it in a couple different trash cans.
Right.
Because if they find one part, they might not be that suspicious if they find the whole body.
I think even if they find a hand, they're going to be a little suspicious about it. They're going to be like, dude, there's a human hand
I don't know.
in your trash.
Garbage. I don't know who knows what
It's
what
not like
the
a
garbage
finger
man
in the
is
chili
seeing.
or anything, It's a hand.
So, he was questioned by officers because they knew that they had a relationship. He said he knew nothing about Howell's disappearance. He claimed to have driven him to marry him because that was how he got Howell in initially. Was like, I'll give you a ride. I got you. So Berdella is claiming now that he dropped him off where he said, and that was it. See you later. He claimed he hadn't seen him since. And this would be the case with all of Berdella's murders. He kept a detailed log in which he documented each act of sexual and physical torture inflicted upon his victim. So he has stenographer's logs.
Dang.
And keeps very detailed logs as he goes and tortures and rapes of like, this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. Here's the force I'm applying. Here's the tool I'm using. Here's the time I'm doing it. Here's the...
Very detailed.
Very detailed logs of the torture. So he is...
Like Hal?
Oh, yeah.
Bro, creepy.
You guys know someone who takes a lot of notes?
No, I mean, he's not a serial killer, obviously, but we used to have a driver that worked for us way back in the day that whenever, like, every time he got a fatal accident, he would take notes on the body and all kinds of stuff. So maybe he is a serial killer, actually.
Yeah, you're like, actually, you know what?
Now that I look back on it.
Come to think of it.
Just in the makings.
Yeah.
So who knows where he is now.
Kept a shoe.
Kept a shoe.
From one of the fatal accidents. So.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, now it's gotten weird.
Yeah, definitely a strange guy. But anyway.
So...
Super nice.
Robert Berdella would recall that, like the subsequent victims he would hold captive, Howell had repeatedly pleaded for his ongoing abuse and torture to cease throughout his period of capture. Although Berdella would either ignore these pleas, taunt his victim, or threaten them even further. It's hard to say how you'd respond in a situation like that, but like, what further threats? Like, fuck you, dude! I'm tied to a bed and you're torturing and raping me. Like,
You've
what?
already rammed a wiffle ball
Right?
bat
Can you
in
just
places
please
I've never
kill
seen.
me? Thank you.
Yeah.
Rough. So he would remain adamant to investigators that this would not for his enjoyment, but what he termed his physical and mental satisfaction. Question number 5.
Oh.
Berdella will be known by 2 different nicknames. One is taken directly from his favorite movie, and he will be called the Collector. What other nickname is given to Berdella? Is it A, the Kansas City Killer, B, the Kansas City Torturer, C, the Kansas City Butcher, or D, the Kansas City Collector?
So I'm taking that this took place in Kansas.
Oh, no, California.
Oh, okay. Let's go with the Kansas Collector. That's what I'm going for.
Cary's taking Kansas City Collector.
I feel like I have to abandon D at this point because that's just not sounding that solid.
I totally took it, though.
Cary went for it.
I can go for it too.
Yeah,
Multiple
hell
choice.
yeah, you can.
Take the D.
Take the D.
Is
Take the D.
Kansas City Killer, Torturer, Butcher, Collector.
I'm going to go with Killer because that sounds like it rolls better. So I'm gonna go
Kansas
with
City
A.
Killer. All right. Well, congratulations. Nobody.
Thank God.
Because it was probably the Butcher, huh?
It
Was
is
the Butcher? Yeah, it
the
sounded,
Kansas City
it sounded
Butcher.
familiar, but I just went for the D.
Yes. So he went for the D. He did it all for the joke. And at least he got a laugh out of it. April 10th, 1985. A former lodger of Berdella. So there's one thing, too, that we should know is that Robert Berdella, while he's taking care of these men of the street, a lot of them are staying pretty extended periods of time. So this is one that used to live there, and he's kind of gotten his life together, I guess, a little more. But he is asking to come back. 23-year-old Robert Sheldon arrived at his doorstep and asked if he could again stay at the house for a short period of time. According to Berdella, although Sheldon was responsible in paying rent, he considered him an inconvenience, and although he was not physically attracted to this victim, chose to drug and hold him captive on April 12th when he returned home from work to find Sheldon intoxicated in his home. He rolls up, the guy's shit-faced, and he's like, you know what?
Time to get...
I wasn't really going to do this, but
Fuck this guy in two ways.
I think it's time to torture and rape you.
Time to get the wiffle ball bat.
Oh, man.
It doesn't get any better from here.
Damn. It just progressively spirals down, huh?
Yeah. So Berdella was adamant again that he held no firm malice towards Sheldon, but saw him as an individual upon whom he could, quote, express some of the anger and frustration that I had toward other people. Yeah, seems okay, I guess.
Legit, right?
Yep. So he drugged Sheldon with sedatives and held him captive on the second floor of his home for 3 days.
Oh shit.
Sheldon endures more forms of torture and rape, such as swabbing drain cleaner on his eyes. So he'd hold his eye open and take a cotton swab and swab the Drano just on one eye. He was doing a lot of attempts to create sex slaves very Dahmer-like.
Yeah.
Instead of going for like the frontal lobotomy, he was thinking like, well, maybe if I could take away their eyes. And then he would do things like inject their larynx with drain cleaner as well.
Wow.
So he wanted to make them not be able to talk, not be able to see, and be perfect little sex slaves for him.
He's like, as long as you can hear me, you can do what I want.
I mean, at the very least, at least he had clean drains around his house. He's got a lot of drain cleaner in there.
There's just guys delivering 50-gallon drums of
like,
drain cleaner.
What's this guy doing with all this shit?
Hey, don't worry about it. Get out of here. So,
I like the way it smells.
yeah, oh my gosh. So, he wasn't into the way he looked, but he's taking this guy. He wants to make him blind. He's going Drano in the eye. He inserts needles beneath fingertips, binding of his wrists with piano wire with the intention to permanently damage the nerves in his hands. Nope. He doesn't want him to hear either because he fills ears with caulking. I forgot about that. So he'd stick a caulking gun deep in their ear.
The gun.
Yeah.
So there's a different gun.
And just
load it up.
and just fill it. And, he figured maybe just no communication was best for him.
Jesus.
So 3 days after Berdella had begun holding Sheldon captive on April 15th, a workman came to perform some scheduled work on the roof of Berdella's home. So before the worker came, he decided that to keep Sheldon quiet, he would fatally suffocate him by placing a sack over his head, which he then tightened with a piece of rope. He later dissected Sheldon's body in the third floor bathroom.
I wonder why it's so different from the last one.
Yeah, his MO sort of changes. I mean, in a way, his MO doesn't change in that he just keeps bringing young gay men to his home and killing them and torturing them and raping them. But he experiments.
But why all over the house? I mean, I guess
it's his house, man. It's
that's
4513 Cleveland Street, dude. He does whatever the fuck he wants.
He's all bringing it up.
Yep. So the following June, Berdella found Mark Wallace, whom he vaguely knew from having helped with some yard work at some point. Wallace came and did some yard work for him to earn some money. So Wallace is hiding in his tool shed during a severe thunderstorm looking for shelter. So
working in my tool shed.
yeah, that's
I just want to stay alive.
you're a federal agent. As had been the case with Robert Sheldon, Berdella invited him inside the house and, noting his acute state of tenseness and depression, volunteered to inject him with chloropromazine with the explanation that this would, quote, calm down and relax you. Wallace willingly accepted the offer, and 30 minutes later, Berdella decided to render him captive. Now, Robert Berdella is the one telling us that he was like, yeah, man, shoot me up. I'm in, dude. So take it with a grain of salt. That's the only real, story we have is from the guy who fucking murdered him. So
he accepted his death.
Yeah, come on, just put that in. He thought he was trying to help him. If he did truly accept it, he thought that Robert Berdella was trying to hook him up with
free drugs.
Yeah, let me throw this in you, dude. You're gonna feel better. Like, just chill out here. You were sleeping in the shed. Like, I brought you in, bro. Who's got you?
Yeah, and then once he's totally fucked up, he's just like, oh, well,
yeah.
Now that you're here,
Wallace was carried to the second floor bedroom where he endured almost a day of captivity and torture, including the application of alligator clips to his nipples to facilitate electrical shocks to his body, at which point he began regressing into a state of unconsciousness. According again to Robert Berdella, 1 hour after his, quote, experimenting with hypodermic needles by inserting them into various muscles upon his victim's back. So a type of...
acupuncture almost.
Yeah, crude acupuncture.
Yeah. He's like, you're supposed to use thick needles, right?
10
gauge.
I do not know. Yeah. So he's just stabbing him into his back, kind of seeing what they do. Mark Wallace from this eventually dies through a combination of, quote, the drugs, the gag, and the lack of oxygen, says Berdella.
This gag's getting people.
Yep. He noted that his victim's time of death was 7 p.m. on June 23rd. Again, in the logbook, he's very, very detailed. On September 26th, 1985, Berdella answered a phone call from an acquaintance named Walter James Ferris. Ferris requested that he be allowed to stay at Berdella's for a short period of time. Berdella accepted this request with the specific intention of kidnapping Ferris, whom he met by prearrangement at a bar that evening. So... hey, yeah, I'll meet up with you at a bar. Like, maybe you come by my house.
Have a couple drinks.
Yeah, see how the situation works out.
Wake up tomorrow
later.
Yeah, so
wake up tomorrow with something in your butt.
Yeah, it depends on where things go from here. So, despite the brutality he had exhibited upon his first 3 victims, according to Berdella, Ferris was the first individual upon whom he intentionally inflicted torture. So. Before this,
that wasn't torture.
No, this was
this was
alligator
clamps on the nipples and shocking.
He's like, I thought he liked it. I thought he liked it.
So he's going to turn it up to 10 now. Apparently,
he might.
He's cranking
turn it to 11 and rip it off, dude. He would later state to investigators that there were periods of time in his final 3 victims' captivity in which he did not record any notations of the abuse he inflicted, as he felt his captive would not be able to make it much longer. Ferris was drugged with tranquilizers and tied to Berdella's bed, where he was tortured on an almost constant basis for approximately 27 hours. This torture included the repeated administration of a 7,700-volt electrical shock administered to the shoulder and testicles for up to 5 minutes in each instance.
Jesus.
As well as acupuncture from hypodermic needles to the neck and genitals. Ferris gradually became delirious, and although Berdella continued his physical and sexual assaults upon his victim until he noted in the log, he kept upon Ferris, quote, unable to sit up more than 10 to 15 seconds.
Yeah. Okay. So, question.
Yes.
Why would you even at some point? Why would you say sexual assault? Like this dude, he's shocking his balls with 77,000 volts, and then like he just stops and just gives the guy like a handy real quick, and then
I think it's more like he's just ramming his ass. I don't think he's.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's just like when he's
a
like,
gay
look,
prostitute.
okay, I'm ready to fuck now. He flips him over and gets in the butt.
I just feel like at that point, it's just. I mean, I understand sexual assault, and I don't want to like minimize that by any extent, but I feel like that's just more torture than anything.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like you can't say the dude was like shocked in the nuts and stabbed with hypodermic needles. Oh, and then he got raped in the butt, and then back to this. Yeah. It's like,
well, I think, and probably the way it's written too, because I use this laws universities timelines for a lot of this. So I think most of the way we see it written is because of the separate legal things they're doing.
Yeah, you gotta go at every charge.
I do agree with what you're saying.
At some point, you're not wrong. Like, you gotta open the book and be like, okay, so dude got brought home from the bar, and a lot of fucked up shit happened, and now he's dead.
The end. Well, that does not make for very good podcasting.
No. This is very true. This is very true.
Listen, welcome to the Serial Chillers podcast. Some people died, and he was sentenced to death.
That's it.
See you next week on the Serial Chillers on episode 6,452 of the Serial Chillers podcast. So, yeah, it is all torture. I agree with you. It's 100%. He's just being tortured.
But
so
I see what you mean about like the law side of it, because when you're reading in court, you got to say
Right.
every single instance of the time of law. Or,
375 counts of sodomy.
Right. So many instances. So he notes again in his notebook that that Ferris is unable to sit up for more than 10 or 15 seconds. It was followed by an entry reading, quote, very delayed breathing. Shortly thereafter, Berdella wrote that his victim had died with a simple notation translating as question number 6. I've got 4 options.
Ball gag.
What was the end note? So, what did he write to signify the end of his victim's life in the notebook?
Okay.
Was it A, in all capital letters, dead? Is it B, assignment failed? C, goodbye? Or D, stop the project?
Ooh, C and D are pretty solid.
I was going to go with B and D. Project failed.
So
he makes sex slaves.
It's 1. Is it dead, assignment failed, goodbye, or stop the project?
I'm going to go with assignment failed.
Okay. Cary's going to be assignment failed.
Right.
C is just so creepy.
Kyle's going C, goodbye. At the end of the notebook, for John Ferris, he would simply put, stop the project.
Did I get it?
No one got it.
Damn
It
it.
was D, man. The
It was
D
D.
always does me good.
See? The D does you
You
good.
should have gone back to D. So, it's anybody's game. We've got 2 questions left. It is 500 to 250, Cary.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how this finishes out.
Right.
So, in June of 1986, Berdella encountered a 21-year-old male prostitute and former acquaintance of his named Todd Stoops at Liberty Memorial Park. Stoops and his wife had briefly resided with Berdella in 1984. He accepted an invitation to accompany Berdella to his house with an initial incentive for simply sharing lunch. It's been a while. You guys used to live with me. Like, come on down. Like, let's have some lunch and catch up, man. How's the wife? Kids on the horizon maybe for you? I don't know. Let's talk about it. Lunch? I got you. Come on. You still like salami sandwiches, right? So,
Big ones.
Berdella would later stress to investigators that he had been extremely physically attracted to Stoops, and this victim was held captive for 2 weeks before he died.
Wow.
With Berdella gradually making concerted efforts to terrify his captive and render him cooperative and incapacitated sex slave, with efforts including forcing Stoops to endure electrical shocks through his closed eyes in an attempt to blind him, injecting drain cleaner into his larynx in an unsuccessful effort to render him mute, and on one occasion, on the 2nd week of his capture, Stoops asked Berdella if he could just have a soda and a sandwich, to which Berdella refused, at which point Stoops finally emotionally broke down and burst into tears. Berdella stated that towards the end of Stoops' 2-week period, he did finally attempt to feed him ice cream and soup, but his captive was, quote, not able to keep anything down. So he didn't let him eat for close to 2 weeks.
Yeah. Damn.
And he's like, come on, it's Neapolitan.
And chicken noodle,
I
bro.
mean, 77,000 volts to the nuts will probably do that too.
Yeah, it's
I don't know if I'd be keeping food down either.
Nope. So Stoops also had notes in the notebook about him that said, quote, he was so weak he was unable to breathe while in a sitting position. Berdella's assumption was that his victim had died of a combination of a fever and blood loss contracted due to the repeated sexual assaults and the abuse that he had been forced to endure, which had included the rupturing of his anal cavity with Berdella's fist.
I was going to say fisting.
Use that dude like an oven mitt.
Yeah, Berdella would literally say
Elbow
later
deep.
that it was elbow deep. Like that was the thing that he needed to do. So this guy died from internal bleeding from the rupturing of his anal
basically
cavity.
gut punched him. He's like, check this shit.
Yeah. So
I'm just looking at your hands, Jess, and yours, Kyle, and I'm just like, damn. Damn.
in the spring of 1987, Berdella became friendly with a 20-year-old named Larry Wayne Pearson. This casual friendship began when Pearson entered his shop and explained to Berdella that as a child, he had held an interest in both witchcraft and wizardry. So he rolled into Bob's Bizarre Bazaar and was like, listen, brother, when I was a kid, I was all about the Wiccan arts and wizardry. And you know what Bob said, right?
Come back to my house.
Come live with me. And
show you some crazy
what do you
shit,
think
man.
Larry Wayne Pearson said? Nothing but absolutely.
Yeah.
What can I do to live here? Bob said, hey, some chores, hang out, do what you're going to do. According again to Berdella, he did not intentionally intend to capture this individual, but formed the plan to do so on June 23rd when, having bailed Pearson out of jail, the younger man began jokingly referring to his practice of robbing gay men in Wichita. So he finds out how essentially, like, my roommate's been arrested. I'm going to go bail him out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Rob Berdella, and I'm going to go bail this guy out.
I'm going to do something good for once.
And I like this guy, so, you know, why wouldn't I? And even still, he's like, I'm not going to kill him. Whatever. Like, he get arrested. I've been arrested. You know, I'm Rob Berdella. But this guy, Pearson, starts saying, like, yeah, you know, I went to jail. I was robbing gay guys, like I always do, for money. And you know,
see what happens when you try to be nice.
Right, exactly. So
He's like, I'm gay.
Your best friend robs gay people.
That evening, Berdella insured. That's the chain of events. That's how it happened. That evening, Berdella insured Pearson became intoxicated before injecting him with chloropromazine and moving him down to the basement, where he bound Pearson's hands above his head. Then linked the rope he had just used for this purpose to a brick column before injecting Pearson's larynx with drain cleaner. He then brought an electrical transformer to the basement. According, again, to Berdella, Pearson was by far the most cooperative of his 6 murder victims. God damn it, I have such a hard time believing that I would be cooperative.
At all.
You know, I mean, you think
That's what I'm saying. You don't, I mean, who knows?
So you're sitting there thinking, like, maybe if I just do what this guy wants, I'll get out of here. But at the same time, I feel like I don't think I could. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't.
obviously
Is it going to
never
buy me
been
any
there.
time? Is it going to buy me any time if I, just bend over and take
But
the
then, I mean, you got to think about it. So,
$70,000
dude's got an electrical transformer ready to hook it up to your junk.
Yeah.
Dude.
And you're like, do I really want to try to kick this dude in the face right now? Because
he's
Well,
clearly fucked.
You can't really kick because, you're bound to his bed. And ew. I don't know how many beds he has, but if he sleeps...
Well, this time he's not in bed. He's just like down on a brick column in the basement.
he's bound to a column.
He's like,
never mind.
he's like the bed is dirty.
The bed is dirty.
Yeah.
It's currently
The last
occupied
victim.
right now.
I need to do the sheets.
Right. So, on the 5th day of his captivity, having by this stage endured torture such as the repeated administration of electrical shocks with the transformer and the breaking of several hand bones with an iron rod to render him submissive, Berdella deduced Pearson had earned his trust as to his continued cooperation in his sexual and physical abuse. Like, I keep abusing this guy, and he just keeps cooperating. So, to reward him, he moves him to the 2nd floor and puts him in a bedroom. Look at that.
See?
I take my princess from the dungeon and I put her in a bedroom. Song as old as time,
Yeah, I mean-
beauty, and like this is.
But on one side, yeah, it's fucked up,
Right.
obviously. But at the same time, if you were a dude that's been bound to a brick
It's
column
probably-
for 5 days and you
right.
get to actually just lay in a bed, I'd be like, dude, I don't care if you go elbows deep. I'm laying down now.
I'm going to sleep.
Right. Yeah. So, he puts him in a bedroom. He tells him, "You can stay here if you continue to cooperate. I will continue to inflict pain, but less pain upon you. And like stay in the bedroom essentially. Like stay earning this, and you'll be fine-ish." So
Asterisk.
Pearson was held captive for some time. Question number 7. How long was Pearson held captive? Was it a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks?
Dude's fucked up. It could be any of them.
So wait,
Right.
say that again?
Was he held? The last we've checked in on him, it's been 5 days. That's when he gets moved upstairs.
Right.
Okay.
So he's held a total amount of time of a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 weeks?
I'm gonna go with 4 weeks because 6 weeks is a little long. Especially
It's a month
for
and a
how-
half.
It's for especially how progressive he is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
He finally did find his princess, though.
I'm gonna go.
still 4 weeks.
I'm gonna go with D.
Kyle goes back to D at 6 weeks. So, throughout the latter part of his 6-week captivity, Pearson trained himself to sleep without moving in order that he did not antagonize Berdella and thus invite further torture or being returned to the basement. Congratulations, Kyle. 250 points. You have knotted it up with only one question to go.
I feel so bad for him.
It is 500 to 500.
6 weeks.
Dude, sleeping still so that your torturer doesn't
I
wake
feel like
up.
I feel like I would want to piss him off, so he would just kill me.
Right.
right at that,
At that
time.
point, like you just accept it. You're like, this isn't gonna end well, and
I'm not going home.
Well, let's just say that he didn't go down without a fight.
oh,
After 6 weeks of captivity, in an act of desperation and despair, Pearson deeply bit into Berdella's penis before screaming that he could not continue to tolerate being treated in this manner. In
Gangster.
response, Berdella killed Pearson by first bludgeoning him into unconsciousness
Of course.
with a tree limb.
Ooh,
he just has a tree limb in his fucking room.
Maybe he went outside
Yeah.
and got one that was special.
He went
or
outside,
near to his-
outside to get like
Go
some
outside and get
breath of
yourself a
fresh air and just
switch.
kind of try to shake it off. You know, that
And he was like,
my
"Look at
dick
that
has been bit
freshly
off.
fallen tree
I
limb."
want to beat this guy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So he then suffocates him with a bag and ligature like he's done before, before driving to the hospital to receive treatments for his wound, where he had to stay a few days. And I think that it doesn't describe the wound much more than a deep wound, but a deep wound to a penis.
Dude.
Essentially, Berdella knew that he was going to be in the hospital for a couple days. He wasn't getting stitched up and going home tonight, and he knew
Yeah.
he couldn't leave him here a couple days by himself. So his princess, his one true that he moved up the ladder, bit into him so deeply that he was forced to kill him.
I mean,
Yeah,
It's heartbreaking.
that's
It's
so bad.
yeah. So he kills him with the tree limb, or knocks him unconscious with the tree limb, kills him with the bag and ligature. Pearson's body was later dismembered in the basement, and his head is initially stored in a plastic bag inside Berdella's freezer before being buried in the backyard. A lot of this sounds very Dahmer inspired, and I'm just kind of noticing that.
Yeah.
Like the head in the freezer,
Yeah,
like
the
some
zombie,
of his
the sex zombie thing.
right.
Well,
And I
maybe
don't
not
know why I
zombie,
wasn't
but
really
sex
putting
slave.
it together while putting all this together, but it's definitely now sort of clicking. So at 1 a.m. on March 29th, 1988, Berdella abducted his last victim, a 22-year-old male prostitute named Christopher Bryson, whom he lured to his house upon the promise of payment for sex.
So apparently dick works. So
Right.
It's good now, or does it? He just
it's
told
like-
him that's
it's got
what
a
he's
little
going
curve
for.
at the end.
Yeah,
But you
yeah.
know,
Don't worry
for the
about
most
that
part,
scar.
We're okay.
Gives it character. At Berdella's home, Bryson was knocked unconscious with an iron bar, then bound to Berdella's bed, where he was subjected to similar methods of abuse and torture endured by previous victims, although in Bryson's case, Berdella repeatedly swabbed his eyes with ammonia before exclaiming to him, quote, "The
Like
only
that's like it's any better or any worse than
the
me."
only
Drano.
things you need to think about are you, me, and this house." After several days, Berdella explained to Bryson that he had begun to, quote, "trust. I trust you now." He's finally trusting again, dude. I think he's found another princess.
The one version 2.0.
He's starting to trust his captive, and although he was willing to discuss aspects of the abuse and torture he was receiving, there would be no negotiations pertaining to his sexual abuse. Listen, I'll stop shocking your balls and beating your fucking face with my fist.
And this lead or this steel pipe
Right.
or whatever it is.
But I will not stop raping
It was
you.
a
Yes.
rod. It was a rod.
Yeah, so Berdella finished this discussion with a stern warning, quote, "I've gotten this far with other people before, and they're dead now because of mistakes they made." By the third day of his capture, Bryson had earned sufficient trust from Berdella to persuade him to establish a regime of tying his hands in front of him after his sexual abuse rather than above his head, and to the bed upon the excuse that doing so was restricting the circulation in his arms. So he's saying, dude, it's been 3 days. You're tying my head up above my head. Like, you want me to do shit?
Yeah, I can't.
You're gonna need to help me help you.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta.
And this guy didn't even have to go the full business week, 3 days, and he's earned the trust that it took the last one 5. So either Berdella's letting his guard down, or this guy's just good.
Well, I mean, after
really,
a dick
really
bite
good.
like that, I mean, shoot.
I mean, the other guys, when I shock them, they kind of, but you.
Something about you, Tim.
He got him to tie his hands in front of him. Like it went from above his head and, sufficiently
which is a huge
safely
thing.
not getting away, right? To like, just put him like in front of me. Come on.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
Right. So he also persuaded Berdella to leave a television on within the room with a remote control placed between his legs whenever Berdella was out of the room. So put it right here. I'll be able to reach it. Whenever you're not in here, I can watch TV. Like, it'll be nice. And I'm your princess, right? Come on. He would later state to investigators that he had thought almost constantly about escaping. Does he escape?
Well,
Are we hearing the story in his third person?
He's talking to investigators.
So the following day, he managed to break free of his restraints by burning through them using a book of matches Berdella had inadvertently left in the room and within his reach when he had left the house to go to his place of work. So he's leaving these guys and going to work. Like, these guys are staying tied up in the house.
Balls.
Yeah.
Gagged down. They're probably spending 8-10 hours a day in the house alone and just not being able to get out. This guy convinces him to tie his hands up in the front. Berdella leaves a book of matches in there, and he burns through his restraints with the.
Dude, could you imagine almost being through them and just run out of matches?
Oh my god!
Just like,
And then him coming home and singing.
and you're like 4 or 6 fibers left, but you're just so weak because you haven't ate anything besides semen for like the last 2 weeks that you've been there.
So Bryson then manages to escape from the house by jumping from the second floor window, wearing nothing besides a dog collar around his neck, with a leash following.
Nice.
He breaks a bone in his foot in the process. He then ran toward a meter reader, walking across the other side of the street, shouting for this individual to call the police. The individual led Bryson to the house that he had been approaching, and they asked the occupants to call the police, who arrived 5 minutes later. Bryson is questioned on the scene by 4 officers, and he told the story that we just told. As Bryson spoke, the officers noted that in addition to the dog collar and a broken foot, he had red swollen eyes and visible scars and welts across his entire body. 2 officers were told to maintain a discreet surveillance of the property as Bryson was driven to the Menorah Medical Center, accompanied by a 3rd officer for treatment, as the 4th officer radioed the Kansas City police and request a formal search warrant for the property to be drafted. While waiting near the property to decide what they were going to do next, Berdella arrived home and was promptly taken into custody. Can you fucking imagine? Like you've got this guy tied up, you pull up and you're like,
The fuck are all these cops for?
fucking cops around here.
Yeah,
And you
right.
pull into your driveway and you're like, what seems to be the problem, officer?
Yeah.
Like, get on the fucking ground. Get on the fucking ground right now.
Got the wrong guy.
Yeah, no, this, I don't, oh, what? This is in my house.
I have no idea what you're talking
These
about.
guys were already there when I bought it.
Naked men jumping from my second story.
So he's arrested on charges pertaining to the sexual assault of Christopher Bryson, and initially his bail is set at $500,000.
Wow. 10%.
He initially declines to allow officers inside his home, and the search warrant that was earlier requested was finally drafted to search his property. Evidence to corroborate Bryson's claims to have been restrained and tortured in a second-floor bedroom were found, and investigators discovered in the bedroom on the second floor was found to have burnt ropes attached to posts of the foot of a bed. Also in the room was an electrical transformer plugged into a wall with wires leading to the bed. A metal tray containing syringes, small bottles apparently containing prescription drugs, swabs, and eye drops were also available close to the bed. Also found in the room were long iron pipe, various lengths of rope, and leather belts. Investigators also noted that although Bryson's restraints had been tied to posts at the time or at each corner of the bed, other posts on the bed had been extensively worn, suggesting that restraints had earlier been tied to these posts and that the individual or individuals had struggled to free themselves. Searching else, he's used it so much that they've like worn through the bedposts.
Dude, imagine being the officer too, taking that report. Like he's like, okay, wait, so hold on, stop. So he tied you up. He put Drano in your eyes. They probably like, this guy's fucking crazy. He's high. His eyes are red because he's slamming amphetamines.
And they get up there and they're like, oh, there's shit here that he didn't even know about.
Oh shit.
Oh my God. So, yeah, it clearly right off the bat does not look very good. So, searching elsewhere in the house and the grounds of 4315 Charlotte Street, investigators uncover a human skull inside a closet on the second floor of his property.
Yep.
They also find the partially decomposed human head in the backyard. The search also uncovered several human vertebrae scarred by either hacksaws or knife marks stowed in a hallway, and several human teeth stowed in 2 separate envelopes.
Wow.
Both a hacksaw and miter saw were discovered in the basement of the property, and a chainsaw was also found to be soiled with bloodstains, flesh, and pubic hairs.
Damn.
I'm sure there's other hairs on there, but they had to point out pubic hairs.
Yeah.
Make the mind go there. Probably hacked off a dick or two.
Luminol tests revealed that the floor of Berdella's basement and 2 plastic trash barrels were extensively bloodstained, and a total of 334 Polaroid pictures and 34 snapshot prints of various male individuals were also found stowed in various locations within Berdella's house. These images depicted Christopher Bryson and several other individuals in life and in death, and many of the images had been taken as the subjects had been tortured. The search also uncovered numerous restraining and sexual devices, pornographic literature, hypodermic needles, and a book devoted to the creation and remedies of narcotics. So he was like learning how to make different drugs as well. Like he wanted to learn how to like make the zombie drugs. He was trying to figure it all out. He's a amateur pharmacist.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he had good intentions.
The Alchemist. Atop a chest of drawers in one bedroom, officers discovered a stenographer's notepad containing the detailed tortured logs that had been taken of each victim. Several newspaper clippings from the Kansas City Star regarding a missing young man named Jerry Howell, and both a wallet and driver's license belonging to a missing person named Walter James Ferris was discovered in a closet on the second floor of the property. There's no real way out of it. The court trial's pretty cut and dry. I didn't get too deep into it, but on July 2nd, 1988, a grand jury indicts Berdella for the murder of Larry Pearson.
Of course.
On August 3rd, 1988, in order to avoid the death penalty, Berdella pleads guilty to Pearson's murder. September 2nd, the grand jury indicts Berdella for the murder of Robert Sheldon. On September 13th, Berdella plea bargains to life in prison in exchange for a full confession of his crimes. December 13th to the 15th, Berdella confesses to investigators to his crimes in vivid detail. So those are the stories that we have now. The ones that we hear tonight. That's why
like
every single goddamn line was according to Berdella. So, I mean, a lot of serial killers do this. They open up and they give you all the stories, and some of it, like Dahmer, it's mostly corroborated. Like it's all there. Like they can look back and say, like, yeah, here's that guy that he claims, and that seems for the most part to be this case. You know, maybe some of the details are different, and he acts, you know, like a lot of us would, tougher in the situations or whatever it was. But, you know, what we know of this case is from Berdella's incredibly detailed confessions.
And his note-taking.
Exactly. So on December 19th, 1988, Berdella pled guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Robert Sheldon and 4 counts of second-degree murder involving additional male victims. Berdella confesses in court and is sent to the state penitentiary in Jefferson City, Missouri for the rest of his life. He also announces that he has set up a trust fund in the amount of $50,000 for the families of his victims.
Wow.
Oh, wow. What a nice guy.
Right. $50,000. Right. So the 6 families can just split that.
I mean, he had $50,000,
right.
which is
Anyway, kind of impressive, actually.
Told you, trapping.
So,
where'd you get that new minivan? Just breaks out in tears.
oh man.
Uncle Jeffrey got butt fucked, so we got a new minivan.
In January of 89, at 40 years old, Berdella gives an interview with a local television channel in which he blames police and media for distorting him and his crimes. In January 1992, Todd Stoops' mother wins a wrongful death civil suit against Berdella and is awarded a record amount of dollars.
A record amount of dollars?
Okay, that's the last question. This is going to make or break it all, as you are tied. This is just...
How many dollars did they get?
How many dollars did Todd Stoops' mother win in the wrongful death civil suit against Robert Berdella? This is for the game.
Is it a record for just civil suits in general?
From what I can see here, that's all it says is that it's a record amount awarded for any civil suit. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm asking, is it the amount of the dollar or how many dollars in general?
How much money? Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. No. Because how many dollar bills? You could have a $100 bill. Which
Oh my God.
One.
All right. How much money?
Okay.
Cary, you know that.
Just asking.
If it was in your bank account, what would it say?
Yeah.
$0.
How many commas and zeros?
Okay. So what does the state award her for the wrongful death suit she wins against Robert Berdella? This is for the game. How much money is it? What are you guys gonna write down?
Okay.
All right. Cary, what do you got?
71 million.
71 million. Kyle's got, what do you...
1.5 million.
1.5 million. Well, January 1992, Todd Stoops' mother wins wrongful death civil suit against Berdella and is awarded a record $5 billion.
Holy shit.
Because Berdella cannot pay this amount to Stoops, the mother will have to claim on any future earnings Berdella might make.
Oh, that 5 cents an hour he gets in
Yep.
prison.
So this is that's in January of 1992, and on October 8th, 1992, at 43 years old, Robert Berdella dies from a massive heart attack.
Damn. 5 billion.
So she will get nothing.
All right, well, you win.
No, I don't.
Yeah,
It's
you had,
250 points, right?
no. It was for the game. It was tied up
game.
before that.
no,
Cary
good
is
game.
our Cary is our winner.
Won.
Congratulations, Cary. You've
Thank you.
won nothing.
Who the hell would even guess $500 billion?
Just $5 billion.
$5
Just
billion.
$5
I thought you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
500. Oh,
No,
well,
it's-
that's totally,
Yeah.
that's
Just-
understandable
Just
now.
$5 billion.
5 billions. Yeah, I could see that. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So that's it. That's the life of Robert Berdella from beginning to end. That's all of his victims. That's the story. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
thank
absolutely. Thanks for coming, hanging late night. Thank you guys all so much for listening. Thank you, as always, producer Greg, for being here. Greg, you got anything you'd like to send us off with?
I don't. Oh, wait. Did you hear about the serial killer that got another victim recently?
No, I did not. Tell me more.
I will tell you off air because I want to get my facts straight.
Sounds good. So we'll leave that cliffhanger for you guys. And thank you
Tune
for
in next
listening.
week.
Yeah, thank you for listening to episode 27 of the Serial Chillers podcast. All right, that was episode 27. Thank you guys so much for listening. Robert Berdella was very reminiscent of Dahmer in some of his acts and a little bit of a precursor to Ariel Castro. He took a lot of his cues from a movie he saw as a youth. So a lot of interesting kind of combinations with Berdella, a lot of connections to other killers, and perhaps he even inspired some in the future. So it's all very, let's say, bizarre. Congrats again to Cary on his victory. You officially have won nothing, and for that I am very proud of you. Kyle, your story was very appreciated and truly gave me the creeps in a very real, very felt like I was there experience. So thanks for bringing that one. Thanks again to Michelle H. for the suggestion on this episode. Remember, if you guys have any suggestions for future episodes, please reach out. Remember, guys, we are going to be doing the holiday break. So after episode 30, we will be taking about 4 weeks off, and we will come back in January with some fresh stuff. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us through that. If you guys want to reach out to us, please do it. Facebook.com/Serial Chillers Podcast. On Instagram, it's @Serial Chillers Podcast. The Twitter is @ChillersPodcast. Email is serialchillerspodcast@gmail.com. You can call or text the voicemail line 1-805-666-2513. That's 1-805-666-2513. Serialchillerspodcast.threadless.com is the merch store. And, of course, I'm a little behind. I know. If it's killing you guys, I'm going to catch up. Serialchillerspodcast.com. And last but most important, patreon.com/serialchillerspodcast. This one is the one where you can go and give as little as $1 a month and help keep the wheels turning. Greatly appreciated. Anybody who is thinking about giving, anybody who has given, anybody who hasn't, and you just might. Thank you already. Research came, again, as always, Radford University timeline on this one. This one was put together by Ryan Fisher, Ashley Ost, Danielle Bissett, Timothy Jamba, John Jones, Audrey King, Jennifer Kowalski, Elizabeth Krell, and Jacqueline Layton. We used Murderpedia and a breakdown by crimelibrary.org, classic Wikipedia, and I always try to find a documentary to watch. In this one, there was just one that I can find, and it started with awful reenactments. And about 10 minutes in, there was a questionable music video and a lot of homophobia happening. So within the first 10 minutes, I did turn it off. So one of the few that I didn't at least listen to a documentary going on in the background for, because there really wasn't one out there. So thanks for sending me on a wild goose chase, Michelle. Appreciate it. The music on the episode today is by either myself or producer Greg. Thank you guys all so much for listening to episode 27 of the Serial Chillers Podcast. And remember, don't talk to strangers.